Welcome back, guys. Well, there's an old saying, good broth can raise the dead, and if you've ever worked outside in hard negative weather and then came into a warm cup of bone broth, you'll likely feel the same. Today we're gonna make some winter nourishment. We're gonna cook up some bone broth, can it up, and also some fish stock. So bone broth really is the epitome of easy. If you go to the grocery store, you're gonna pay a good amount for a quality bone broth, but at home you can make it super cheap, and I think it's just better. So we went ahead, we really were craving a chicken bone broth. We generally will make about a batch a week in the wintertime. We made some moose bone broth a couple weeks ago, and when that ran out, we really were craving a good old chicken broth. So we got some locally roasted chickens. I roasted them last night, picked all the meat off. We're gonna make some soup, I think, as well, and then threw the carcass in the pot. And you really don't have to get exact with what veggies or herbs you use in here. That is the beauty of it. I'm just gonna throw a couple of onions in here. I'm also gonna do some garlic, some carrots, and some herbs from the garden, some sage and some thyme. It's gonna make a great broth. And the time you boil this, the longer the better, sure, but if you only have 2 to 3 hours, you can do that and make a nice broth as well. That is it. I'm just gonna cover this pot, let it boil away here for about 3 to 4 hours, and in the meantime, I'm gonna wash my canning jars and prep my canner. We got our first snow last night, our first real snow, so Dennis is out there plowing with the ETV. I'm gonna head out there and help him too. Dennis keeping this driveway open with a four-wheeler. Wow, and sheer determination. Our driveway's a pretty steep hill. A lot of folks won't even drive up it. This smells really good. Simmering nicely. I'll let this go for a few more hours, then I will start to can it. It's a great way to keep a shelf-stable bone broth all throughout the winter. I think I might whip up a little fish stock too from some whitefish that we had got a couple weeks ago. But bone broth is one of those things that if you're trying to be healthy or feed your family on a budget, it's a really great thing to kind of have in your tool belt. I'm gonna let this go. Stock the fire, check back on it in a little bit. So I'm just gonna prep my jars here by just washing them in hot soapy water. If you're gonna be processing in the canner for more than 10 minutes, you don't actually have to sterilize them, so I can skip that step because these jars are gonna go for 20 minutes in the pressure canner. You don't have to go crazy, just really hot soapy water will do it, especially if they're new because they're coming from the factory. And I reuse my jars. I do get new lids with each batch though. It's also a really good time to kind of inspect the lids, make sure there's no nicks or cracks in the glass of the jars, because that might interfere with a good seal. And as I'm cooking the bone broth, I just kind of skim it. So I'll skim any fat or anything that floats to the top of that. If you want, you can throw some apple cider vinegar in there too to help draw out the minerals in the bones. A few hours is fine. Ideally, you'd have like 8 to 24 simmering in there to get all that good stuff out. But I'm gonna let that go for maybe another 2 hours or so, and then I'm gonna get to canning. I think I'm also gonna throw together some fish stock from some whitefish carcasses that we got maybe a couple weeks ago. There is no safe or tested canning recipe for fish stock, so I'm just gonna freeze that instead of canning that up. But it's great for chowder, it's a good source of iodine, and just a different kind of stock to have on hand. All right, well this finishes up. I'm gonna run down to the creek, refill our water, and haul it back home. It's so beautiful out today. All right, so this has been going for almost 8 hours now. We are going to each try a cup before we can it up.
Can I get a spoon with mine?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here you go, Lena.
It's like chicken soup.
I think it's ready to can. Oh, it's so good.
You're right, it is so good.
Beautiful out today, huh, Lena?
Yeah. And then warm soup's good for a cold day.
So I'm gonna go ahead and strain this bone broth out right into my mason jars. You could strain the whole thing if you want to beforehand and then fill your jars up after you reheat that broth. I'm gonna double strain it because I don't want any sediment or anything falling into my jars. And I'm going to fill it to 1 inch headspace. So every recipe is different depending on what you are canning, how high you're gonna fill those jars. But for meat stock, bone broth, doesn't matter if it's beef or chicken, it's 1 inch. Bone broth is one of those things that we really like in the wintertime because it's just restorative. It's full of collagen and gelatin and amino acids, minerals from those bones. Good for your gut, your immune health. And after a long day working out in the cold, it's just what we like to have. Next step after filling jars is to wipe the rims clean. You don't want any sort of liquid on there to interfere with the seal. I like to use a microfiber towel for this. They work really, really well and you can reuse them. So I'm just gonna wipe all these guys and then I'm going to put my lids and my bands on and start prepping my canner. Alright, and then when I put my lids on, I kind of like to center them and then just finger tight the tops on. You don't want to make it super, super tight, because then if those lids process, you're not sure if it's because you tighten them very tightly or if it's processed correctly. So I just center them, then finger tight them, and then I have to tuck my oven cover here in to fit my canner on top of this. These go for 20 minutes at 10 pounds pressure if you're under 1,000 feet in elevation. We're about 2,000 feet in elevation. All right. For this model of canner, all I do is I fill it up with a couple inches of water on the bottom and then my jars are gonna go in there. There we go, about that much water. I'm gonna start loading my jars into the canner. One thing you want to be mindful of is if you have very hot water and cold jars, or vice versa, really hot jars and cold water, that could shatter. These are hot. My water was room temperature, so it's just gonna heat up right in the canner. And you can fit a good amount of jars in one canner as long as they're not really, really crunched together. I generally will do about 8 on one level, 8 on the top. All right, I'm gonna put my lid on, and then when you tighten these lids on, it's important that they're somewhat even or level, I should say. So when I do it one side and the exact opposite side, like a spare tire in a car. And then once this gets going, I'm going to watch for steam coming out of this vent pipe, and I'm gonna let that steam for 10 minutes. Another good idea is to always check your vent pipe to make sure there's no obstructions. And absolutely do not move the canner at all until it's completely depressurized after you're done canning. All right, we are gonna wait for this to vent steam for 10 minutes, and in the meantime, I'm going to quickly strain out my fish stock over there. You can't can fish stock once again, so I'm just gonna throw that outside, let it get nice and frozen in our freezers, and then we'll have that for chowders and sipping and all these good things. I'm not really sure why you can't can seafood stock, but when I do can things, we go to a lot of trouble to either harvest fish or animals, so I want to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect when I put that on the shelf. So unless I have a tested recipe, I'm not going to can it. So everything we do is just tested, just for it's what we like to do. But I'm sure some people do can fish stock. It's all up to you and what you're comfortable with. We actually had to send the lid on my other All-American canner to All-American to try to figure it out. We had some issues with the safety gasket just blowing. We use it a lot, especially during salmon season. Dennis was in the kitchen one night. It was my last batch of fish to be canned, and that safety plug just blew out of the top. And it's not at pressure when it's doing this, so I don't know what's wrong with it. But it's not a bad idea to have a backup canner, so we will use it for sure. All right, Lena wants some chicken bone broth with chicken in it. That's what she's gonna have for her dinner, along with a piece of fresh sourdough. Dennis and I are going to toast some sourdough, put some of the chicken meat on it with some homemade cranberry sauce, and make like a little sandwich. But I'm gonna label these whitefish stock. And then I'll pop these outside in the freezers. This time of year, we do not have to power our freezers at all with the generator. Maybe we'll make a chowder or something, or we just like to sip on this too. You want some chicken juice? All right, we got some of our cranberry jam and a little bit of homemade mayonnaise for our sandwiches. Juno got a little bit of chicken too. We get the question a lot of where is Birch? Birch comes and goes as she pleases. She tends to really want to be outside, especially in the hours between dusk and dawn. She wants to be out with the goats. Juno, on the other hand, tends to want to stick very close to us and be inside. She's a little less cold hardy. Maybe that'll change when her coat comes in, but she loves being right here, especially when there's food being cooked.
You.
I think maybe we should do spruce ends for Thanksgiving.
This cranberry sauce is the best.
Delicious. Okay, it's been venting steam for 10 minutes. I'm going to throw my weighted gauge on there at 15 pounds pressure because of our elevation. We're at a little over 2,000 feet in elevation where we are. If you are 1,000 feet or under, it's gonna be 10 pounds. But for us, I'm gonna pop this on at 15 pounds pressure. And the goal is to have this jiggle 1 to 4 times a minute, and then you will know you're ready to start your processing time. If that varies out of that 1 to 4 times a minute, you have to redo it, start over, and restart your processing time. Now this is a new oven, a new old oven. To me, this is the first time I've canned on this old oven, and I'm gonna have to figure out where about to set the heat to get it where I want it on my jiggle. So I'm gonna go ahead, leave this where it is right now, see where it turns out as far as 1 to 4 times a minute jiggling, and then adjust as necessary. If you're used to your oven and canned a lot, you kind of just know where to set it. But we're gonna wait, listen for the jiggle, and when it starts, I will start tweaking it then. All right, so first jiggle, we're gonna start getting this dialed in. Exactly 15 pounds pressure on the gauge. So I'm hopeful this got up to pressure much quicker than my old stove, so I think this is gonna be great to can on. Perfect. All right, we are at 3 jiggles a minute. It is perfect to make a mental note of where my dial is on my stove. So now we're gonna start a processing time of 20 minutes. And then after that, I'll turn the heat off and let this depressurize. All right, we have processed for 20 minutes. I'm gonna shut this off, let this completely depressurize before I take that weight off or take the lid off. Then I can take my cans out. All right, we're all depressurized. I'm gonna take my weight off and then undo my top or lid. I love the ping. First impressions of this old stove. It's wonderful to can on. I found that it heated up and got to pressure quicker than my modern stove that we used to have. And it was more consistent. So once I set that dial or stovetop, it stayed the whole time, which was great. Works wonderfully for canning, which I figured it would. That stuff on the lid is just from the water. You could throw vinegar in there and that would stop that. And that is it. I'm just gonna keep an eye on these, wait and see, and make sure they all seal. If any do not seal, I will reprocess them, but I think these guys are going to be good. We are pretty happy to have this for the pantry throughout the winter. Hey guys, this is Amy and Dennis from Holdfast, Alaska. We are a small family living in the eastern interior, building a subsistence homestead.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed that video, and we'll see you on the next one.